and it feels kind of different on a Friday that tomorrow night there's a heavyweight championship boxing match. And we're going to talk more about it right now. Teddy Atlas, of course, ESPN, longtime boxing trainer, will join us as Fury and Wilder 2, the rematch, the first time a draw. So we'll start with that as we bring Teddy Atlas into the conversation here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Teddy, welcome back, man. How you been?
Good. How are you?
All well. As much as we wish this fight could find its way back to Atlantic City, I don't feel that that's happening anytime soon. This one will be in Vegas. It's still great to have a big heavyweight fight, and as you being in the fight game, just having a big heavyweight fight feels different than all the others, doesn't it?
Yeah, there used to be a time where years ago when, first of all, if you go back far enough, boxing was the biggest sport at one time in this country. I mean, years ago, it was actually bigger than baseball. And also, boxing was the head that moved the body, so to speak, was always the heavyweight division. You know, the heavyweight champ was the most celebrated athlete in the country. Jack Dempsey years ago, Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano, Muhammad Ali, obviously. Muhammad Ali was maybe the most recognizable man in the world at one time. Then Mike Tyson came along. Obviously, he got everybody's attention. So the heavyweight division was as big as it got for sports. And it kind of drifted away for a long time. And to see a significant, meaningful heavyweight fight back with two heavyweights that both can lay claim to a heavyweight title. Of course, the guy with the belt right now is Wilder, but Wilder, Fury can say that he's the lineal champion. He beat the man who had the title. He beat Klitschko, so he's the lineal champ. They're both undefeated. And maybe most important is they're both in the prime. The last time we had a really anticipated fight, we had the Mayweather and Pacquiao, but to be honest, that fight was 5 years too late, at least, past their prime, and it was a disappointing fight. This fight is when both guys are still physically in their prime, and you had a prequel. You already know. You had a preview to this. You know what it's going to, or at least you have an idea of what it can be, because the first one was so good.
Yeah, now let's go back to that first one. It was a draw. What did you think? I mean, I thought it was an exciting fight. It was very competitive. You looked at Fury, a skilled guy, and Deontay just trying to look for that one big shot a lot of times. So it had like a contrast of styles. It had a lot of stuff. It had the knockdown. But in the end, you had the draw. Did you see that as a draw and that it makes the anticipation for this fight worth it?
You know, a lot of people thought that Fury had won the fight. Some people go as far as saying that the only rounds that he lost were the ones that he got dropped in the 9th and the 12th rounds. You know, some people think that Wilder caught up because of those knockdowns, 2-point rounds, 10-8 rounds to catch up in a hurry to a certain extent. I went back, I do a podcast, and I went back, I had to talk about it, so I went back and I looked at it, and I was surprised what I saw. I saw, other than the knockdown rounds where, of course, the action got to where it got to, and that is what we celebrate the fight on, that is what we judge the fight on, is from the 9th round on. But before that, there was a lot of missing, there was a lot of posturing, there was a lot of sizing up, but there really wasn't anybody in charge. There wasn't a great deal happening. I mean, you had Fury making a miss, but it's not like he was laying it on Wilder. Wilder was throwing punches. His technique is not good. He was missing. He was falling off balance. And Fury was using his jab in spots. But again, nothing significant. Nothing where you can say, oh, yeah, the guy's dominating. But I think what was taking place is when we, our human natures, if we're watching a fight like that and we know that Fury is the big underdog, which he was, and he's in there making the big bomber, Wilder miss punches, if he's diffusing the bomb, so to speak, he's making a miss all over the place. Automatically, in our mind, we're saying he's winning. even though he might not be doing all that much back. He's winning the fight. He's in control of the fight. He's the man. And when I looked at it, I didn't see that. I saw, like I said, nobody really taking control, and I saw Wilder being more aggressive, even though he wasn't effective being aggressive. A lot of those rounds could have went to Wilder that I thought initially went to Fury. So at the end of the day, I was not in the camp of everybody and of the way I was before the fight, after the fight initially, and before the fight now, where I thought that Fury won the fight. I thought Wilder might have had an edge, believe it or not. So, again, this fight, there's a reason why there's so much interest, because you actually have a fight where you can make an argument on either side.
Yeah, it's interesting. In 2005, when Sam Peters fought Vladimir Klitschko in Atlantic City, Peters knocked Klitschko down 3 times, and people just assumed that he won the fight. And Klitschko beat him in a basically a stoppage. I mean, so you see a guy get knocked down so many times, the casual fan just feels like that guy wins the fight. But it was really Klitschko that came back and dominated on the points. And I feel like that's how people kind of saw this fight was, yeah, Fury got knocked down twice, but that technically he had won the fight. But it's interesting that you say going back to watch it, that might not be the actual case, which I think leaves a lot more interest in this one. And Teddy, the big question obviously at this one, as it was in the first one, is what kind of game plan can Tyson Fury put? Because can he do a similar game plan as he did the last time and try to win a technical fight?
Well, first of all, it depends what weight. The weigh-in is going to be probably in a short period of time. And reports are coming out, supposedly, that Fury was going to be heavy. And I don't think that – I mean, that makes a big difference of not what he says, but what he can execute. If he's heavier, then it kind of dictates a whole different kind of fight plan or game plan for him. For me, the best thing is he's not the puncher, obviously. Wilder's the puncher. Wilder's one of the heaviest punchers maybe in the history of the heavyweight division ever. I mean, that's how good he punches with the right hand, with one punch, one strike. But he needs to be set to do that, and he needs room. He needs distance. For me, if you're Fury, you have 2 choices. One is to do what you did the first time, do it a little better. Keep him off balance, play in your head. We talk about all sports. In basketball, you guys got the 76ers down there. You talk about the time clock, the shot clock. Have a shot clock. If I'm training them, I'm putting a shot clock in the gym. In my mind, 2 seconds, a second and a half. You can't stand straight in front of them where you could be set for more than a second and a half. You got to do something. You got to move off to the side. You can't stay there where water can get set. Keep them on bounce, give them ankles, and disarm them all night long, and look to counter from the outside when you do that. Or, as he's talked about, Fury has talked about it, and we don't know if it's bravado, we don't know if it's to sell tickets, we don't know if it's to mentally, be able to win a certain kind of battle and put something into Wilder's head. But he's been talking about that he's going to knock Wilder out in 2 rounds. He's going to press forward. And again, you could just write that off as just talk, promotional talk, fight talk. But if he was to want to be in close, there is, for the people that don't understand that, obviously, that are not in this business, there is some truth to being safe when you're in close with somebody, especially somebody like Wilder, who, as I said earlier, needs room to punch, where you're in close, where you don't give him that room, where you can push him back on his back foot. You don't let him get, the power in his punches. And you physically are in a position where you keep your head on the side, you keep it close. And again, you're not allowing anything to get off. There could be safety in the eye of the storm, so to speak. The only thing, if you're on the inside, you have to look out for the uppercut of Wilder for the right hand. Whether he throws it straight or whether he throws it as an uppercut, it's still a powerful punch. So you would have to look out for that. The problem with that is on the way in, on the way to getting there, there's danger. So those are the options for Fury. For me, I would look for him to be boxing like he did the first time on the outside. But as I said, if he comes in 10, 15 pounds heavier than he was, it's going to dictate a whole different kind of fight.
Teddy, what needs to happen in your mind, if anything, best case scenario for the sport of boxing on Saturday night?
Well, a good fight. I mean, when you had Mayweather and Pacquiao, everybody came out. Everybody believed. To the credit of the boxing fans, the great fans there, they came out and they made it the biggest money fight in the history of the sport. The biggest, at that time, biggest pay-per-view event ever. I think it did almost $3 million, somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, just in the incredible universe of money and success that fight was. But it was very disappointing. And it hurt the sport at the end of the day. Because then people, hardworking people who went out and spent, forget about spending the money that they spent to go and watch the fight, but to spend $100 for the pay-per-view, they were burnt. And they were like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And they stayed away from some fights after that, some pay-per-view fights that were coming down the pike. And it took a while for the people to forget about that, to trust the sport again. So it is important. It's funny you bring it up. It's important for that reason. It's important that the people will believe when you put out a fight that it's going to be a great fight, that it's going to be a fight that you're supposed to come and pay for, that you will come and pay for. You will listen to that, and you will believe in that. It's a knockout. People love knockouts. If it's competitive and Wilder scores a knockout, people will be satisfied. If it happens too fast, maybe it's different. But if it's sensational, if it's a sensational knockout, people have a way of forgiving. They have a way of forgetting that maybe the fight, didn't last too long, but they were there to see something sensational, something, happen that doesn't happen that often. Or if there's an upset where Fury pulls it off. Can you imagine Fury pulling off the upset with his charisma, with his personality, his behavior, the way that he'll be going around the ring, and the way that he'll be exploding, in celebration. It'll make it a huge fight. And then the winner, especially if it's Fury coming from London, coming from over in England, from Ireland, what an enormous, epic fight. The winner, but especially Fury, would be against Joshua over there. I mean, Joshua's a guy that put 90,000 people into a stadium, into Wembley Stadium, when he was fighting basically doormen from the King's Arms. Can you imagine if he fights one of these guys, the magnitude of that fight? So there's a lot at stake.
There is, and that's the question I was going to follow up with. Teddy Atlas is with us. Is the winner here? A lot of times you have a fight that has a lot of anticipation, and then the winner, what happens next? Can the follow-up, the encore to whatever next, match this fight to keep the excitement of the sport? And as you just mentioned, Joshua, but is he on the same level with the fans as these two guys are? And I don't even know what level these guys are right now. I guess we're going to find out tomorrow.
Joshua, when you come from across the pond, as our neighbors in England, London like to call it, we like to call it across the pond, the sport, the boxing, once you're identified and once you're built up to the level of a Joshua, it's huge. It's gargantuan. Mm-hmm. In some ways, you're bigger than over here, because over here you have too many options. Over here you have, and we're very fortunate, we're very lucky to have them, but you have LeBron James, you have Tiger Woods, you have Tom Brady, you have all different kind of sports and sports heroes. Over there you don't have all of that. You have soccer, obviously a global sport, but other than that, you don't have all the things that can distract you, that can take you away. You build up a big fight over there. In many ways, it's bigger than here. Joshua is bigger over there than both these fighters.
Yeah.
Joshua, he lost to Ruiz. Obviously, that hurt, but he came back. He won the title. As I said, before he had lost, he was putting 90,000 people into Wembley Stadium fighting nondescript names. If one of these guys wants to fight Joshua, it would, as I said earlier, the word I used, it would be epic.
I will leave you with this. I know you've been around and can see it all and seen all the stories and all the characters. Tyson Fury He's an interesting guy. He sings on his way. He sings when it's over. He did WWE about a month ago. He likes it. I mean, he's enjoying this role he's in. Do you feel that there's a little bit too much flamboyancy, or is this what the sport needs, a guy like him?
Look at Conor McGregor in the MMA and UFC.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason. There's a reason why he draws the way he does. It's not just because of his ability. Yeah, his ability is great, but guess what? Little news memo. He lost his last couple of fights before his last win. He lost a couple of fights, yet he was still that big. Why? If he lost, why?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it wasn't attached just to his athletic ability, to his winning ability inside the octagon, inside the ring. It was attached to something else, to what you're talking about, flamboyancy, to the entertainment value of it, to that he crosses over. And Fury has that. Fury has where he's an entertainer. A lot of people, like Ali used to say, a lot of people would come because they hated him. They want to see him lose. A lot of people come because they liked him, because they enjoyed, that part of it. So he has that. He has it across the sea too. He's been able to build up over there. So that's obviously that's one of the reasons why this fight is so big, because of his bravado. Because of that entertainment part of it, that searchlight that he puts out when he acts that way, where people are attracted to the fight, where normally it would only come from within the fight fraternity, within the fight community. But the light goes beyond that.
Before we get your feeling on who will win the fight, I want to get your thoughts on, do you view Atlantic City still as a boxing town, or is that in the past? Is Atlantic City's days as a boxing town over?
It could be, but, I mean, it has been past. Atlantic City saw some tough times, some very rough times. Hopefully it's coming back. Now, of course, with sports gambling and everything, that's helped a lot. You hope it comes back, and when it comes back and it gets healthy again, the first thing that usually comes to casinos is boxing. It's a natural. So when it gets healthy again and it's getting back to its former self, I would hope that boxing follows. I would hope that it comes back. Right now, obviously, no. It's been gone for a while.
Yep, Bernard Hopkins was the last big name that fought here. That was quite a while ago, and I think he was almost 50 at the time. So that tells you the state of boxing in our town. Teddy, so how do we see it Saturday night? Do you like you have a strong feeling one way or another?
Yeah, it's funny that you brought up one of your last questions was about the bravado, about the showmanship ability of Fury, and sometimes it can be false bravado. Most of the time it's for promotional purposes. Obviously, you don't get paid. It's an entertainment business. You don't get paid if you don't put fannies in the seats. And so that's always part of it. And Ali used it to try to intimidate his opponents, and to try to get under their skin, and also for promotional purposes. But in this fight, I'm not as sure as everybody else that this bravado is attached to confidence. I have a feeling that that's not necessarily attached to confidence, especially if he comes in heavy. And then he's talking about, I'm going to knock you out in the second round. It doesn't. Again, you can say anything. What matters is what you do. But it does fight. A lot of people would say, well, gee, if he fights that fight, it shows you how confident he is. For me, if he really was to fight that fight, you know what it would show me? It showed me more about how unsure he is. Charles just went up when they hear me say that. What do you mean? He's going to be aggressive. He's going to come forward. Now you're saying that means he's going to be unsure of himself? Yeah, it means that, for me, that he's going to be desperate. It means that he's going to be not in control. He's going to be rolling the dice. We're talking about Atlantic City. It's a perfect metaphor. He's going to be rolling the dice. He's going to be trying to get it over with. If he was sure of himself, the surest way is the way he fought the first time, but do it a little better. Don't get caught those two times. Give him more bounce. Expose him on the outside. Make him reach in and then counter him. And show the lackings. We know the power of Fury. We know the strengths of Fury. It's the right hand. But show how he can be off balance. Show how his technique can be so flawed. And it can be. It can be terrible. Expose it on the outside. But when he says that, when you're hearing he's going to be heavy, and then he says behind that I'm going to knock him out in 2 rounds, I'm going to go right after him, you start whether or not that's out of confidence or desperation, where sometimes when you're not sure of yourself, what do? You try to get it over with. You try to get it finished. Yeah. And you go, in this case, rolling the dice would mean going right after the guy. So I'm going to equate that as the guy. There's a guy who fought demons. There's a guy who had drug problems. He overcame that. He had terrible depression problems, suicidal thoughts. He overcame that. He came back from the brink of the abyss. You give him credit for all that. But you start to it suggests a guy, obviously, that's not always stable. And you start to wonder now, not that he has any of those problems, thank God, and God willing he won't in his life anymore, but you start to wonder, again, how stable he is, really how sure he is. And in some ways, people have asked me, who needs to fight more? Who does it mean more to? And a lot of people were saying Fury. And I said, no, for me, it's easy. It's Wilder. Fury's already won. By winning that battle, by beating the demons, by still being alive and being successful, making all this money, he's won. And he's got a legacy. And he's got something else. He could take it on the road. He's got almost a vaudeville act where he's got something else that he can live with that can continue beyond the ring. Wilder doesn't have any of that. Yeah. Wilder has one thing. He's got a dynamite right hand, and he's got the belt around his waist. He's got boxing. That's all he's got. Without that, he's not relevant. Without that, he's nothing. He's just another guy, that made money from Alabama. So, for me, Fury, it just may not be as urgent for him to win. And the confidence that everybody sees in him saying such words might not be attached truly to what he believes. So having said all that, I'm taking Wilder by knockout.
Teddy Atlas, at Teddy Atlas Real, boxing trainer to 18 world champions. You'll see him across ESPN, I'm sure, the rest of the evening and tomorrow. And he was kind enough to join us here on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Thank you, Teddy.
My pleasure.
All right, great stuff. Wow.